Welcome in to another new podcast from the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. My name is Ben Dubose, and I'm a staff writer with the AMP Publications team. One of my colleagues at AMP is Jana Schultz, social media specialist, and she recently attended the annual IAAPA Expo, which was held in Orlando. Each year, IAAPA is the largest trade show for the attractions industry, and there's understandably a need to prevent and mitigate corrosion on those types of high-value assets. Safety is a paramount concern. While at the show, Jana interviewed a series of corrosion experts about industry trends and things to watch for, and as part of this podcast, we're going to play back those conversations. We'll be starting with Chris Ball of Vector Corrosion Technologies. Please note that since these interviews were taped on the show floor and not in the studio, you will hear some background noise of people walking the halls and whatnot, but certainly nothing that's going to prevent you from hearing the conversation and all of the relevant information. Without any further delay, here's Jana and Chris.
I think the first thing I'll ask you to do is just introduce yourself, kind of give your elevator pitch, your name, a little bit about your company, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, hi. My name is Chris Ball. I'm a vice president with Vector Corrosion Technologies, and our company deals with corrosion issues, but specifically related to concrete structures, reinforced concrete. I've been with the company for over 20 years, and my position is primarily in business development, sales, and marketing for the company.
Okay, great. So personally, can you give me a little background about your career in the corrosion industry / amusement park? What sort of work have you brought you to these industries?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, in 1997, I started working for a company that was called Fosroc. Mm-hmm. And Fosroc was a specialist kind of supplier of materials that deals with concrete, concrete repair materials, admixtures, other things. And that got me involved in concrete repair. And one thing that we understand is with concrete, it's a very durable material, but it does have some vulnerabilities. And when you start getting into concrete repair, you end up, really kind of one of the big leading causes of that is corrosion. Mm-hmm. So that first entry into concrete repair led me down a path of becoming more specialized in corrosion, and so that's how I ended up with Vector Corrosion Technologies and an affiliated kind of industry.
Great. So earlier when we were talking, you mentioned sustainability as a key focus for not just the traditional industries that AMP serves, but specifically the amusement park attractions industry. Can you talk a little bit about that? About why an asset owner in this industry would be? Where's the intersection between sustainability and corrosion?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very timely topic right now. I think particularly when you get into larger companies, just about every large company has a position on sustainability and a sustainability statement, and taking into consideration, social and environmental issues with regard to their operations and being good corporate citizens. I think the corrosion industry has a place to play in that because one of the largest consumers of raw materials and producers of pollution actually is construction. And particularly start looking at concrete production. So, if you really want to have a large impact, one thing we can offer is a way to keep your facilities in place. The use of good maintenance practices and repair practices and extending the service life of your existing facilities and not being so quick to just tear down and rebuild would have a very positive impact on sustainability and in the long term.
It saves money too. I mean, even more direct impact. That's something that a lot of people are going to be looking for.
Yeah, no, exactly. Sometimes facilities do need to be, they're either out of date or they just have to come to the end of their service life. So there's always that kind of aspect. But if we can catch the structures early enough and maintenance, repair, using good corrosion control practices will extend the service life of those facilities way beyond potentially what they were originally designed for.
Yeah, huge ROI on maintenance. So a lot of people might not realize it. I certainly didn't before coming to the IAAPA Expo. But the attractions industry, it's a lot more than just roller coasters and Ferris wheels, like what we traditionally think of. It encompasses aquariums, zoos, museums, things that have a really unique built environment. So what are some of the unique challenges and opportunities for corrosion mitigation in these kind of structures?
Yeah, it's been interesting when you walk into the exhibit hall. The first thing you see are the rides and the virtual reality and all the things that are going to be frontward facing toward the clients, the park customers, and that's the fun part. But all of those attractions will, and as well as hotels and parking, all the affiliated facilities, all that's really, that's infrastructure. That's infrastructure that's set to deal with or to support the whole customer experience. So, the first things you can start thinking about are maintaining the rides, but that it goes way beyond that. You have concrete foundations and tanks and aquariums. And all these types of support facilities, and if obviously from a customer experience standpoint, they may not be the first thing you think about, but that's an underlying foundation for the park system.
Well, and the parking structure is sometimes the first impression that people have. If it's rusted and falling down and crumbling concrete, that's not a good first impression. Right. So yeah, you got to take care of all these aspects.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you had a really great case study example about the swimming pool concrete corrosion.
Right.
So yeah, I think one of the things that we talked about with a lot of the attendees on the show floor yesterday was indoor aquariums and swimming pool environments. So the HVAC systems, the air is a really a challenging situation for them because they didn't know how to manage that environment to take care of corrosion. Do you want to go into any detail on that case study?
Well, yeah, I think the corrosion field is a specialist field, and when you start looking at beyond coatings and other types of systems and cathodic protection systems, when you really get into looking at concrete infrastructure, it's even a further specialty within the corrosion field. Maybe I'll just talk about that for a second. Concrete, as I mentioned, is a very durable material. It's been around for thousands of years in different forms. But really the issue that we have with reinforced concrete is the corrosion of the reinforcing steel. And pretty much at some point in your life, you're gonna go by a bridge or a parking structure, as you mentioned, and other things, and you're going to see some rust on the concrete, or maybe some spalled sections of concrete. And the more you start to see it, the more you notice it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and it's not the sexy part, but it's the thing is, like, when you start to see rust and corrosion issues, it doesn't mean that you have a huge problem at first, because it's going to show early signs of deterioration, and that's kind of one of the fortunate things we have, is that the reinforcing steel will actually corrode within the structure, and there's some expansion that occurs with the corrosion of the reinforcing, and that causes cracking and other things. So in most cases, you can actually see some evidence of early signs of deterioration on the surface. So that's kind of the positive part. From a industry amusement standpoint, that doesn't put your best foot forward on how things look. It may not be a big problem at this point, but you want to make sure that the facilities look tip-top shape as well. You start taking a look at the next step. Once the corrosion issue is not addressed and it gets larger, unfortunately, we've had a few examples, lately of structural failures. And not only we've had some issues with bridges and parking structures, more recently a building, that it's really, hopefully by maintaining our facilities, we never get even close to that issue. And one example we were involved in a project a few years ago where it was basically a facility that had a swimming pool as at an amusement facility. And in the mechanical room of the swimming pool, you have a lot of chemicals and for water treatment and whatnot. And those are generally some types of salts. And if you have moisture, you have salt exposure. Eventually that penetrates into the concrete and starts causing corrosion issues. And fortunately, this was not really in a visible part of the park, but you end up with widespread corrosion and spalling of the concrete. So the good news is that you can fix that. I would just encourage people to engage with somebody who knows what they're doing. Come to an organization like AMP or some of the members who have specialty in concrete corrosion. Work with engineers to really kind of have an understanding of what the cause of the problem is to begin with, so that you just don't jump into a solution that's just short term. You want to have something that you understand what the cause of the problem is. You design a long-lasting repair, and in that situation they ended up utilizing some cathodic protection, which is it's a technology that's been around for a long time. That's been used for ships and for pipelines and marine facilities, but you can also use similar types of techniques in reinforced concrete. And so by a proper repair strategy that includes replacing of the corroding reinforcing steel, concrete repair, strengthening of the structure itself using carbon fiber, which is another interesting kind of technology that's used for strengthening facilities, and incorporation of cathodic protection systems. And then on top of that, you have a nice looking protective coating that goes onto the structure that's seamless and slip resistant and protects it from future problems. That's really a holistic solution that's going to last for a long time.
Right.
And it's just not a short-term option. So
I imagine it's tempting for owners to kind of jump straight to that step as the aesthetic coating, the patch that makes it look better, and obviously that will come back to bite you if you're not solving the root problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. Everyone has some maintenance people. Like they're going to have maintenance people, and you can see, maybe doing some crack filling or other things or patching. But really, when you start getting into structures that are important to you and that you want to keep them for a long time, keep them in place. Once kind of to circle back around to the whole sustainability thing, that's really important to your organization. Then let's maintain the facilities and make them last a long time.
Right. All right. This is great. I think we're getting a lot of really great bites here. Were there any other questions that you saw in here that you wanted to I jumped around a little bit, but we can kind of jump back and do anything if there's anything specifically that you want to talk about.
You want to talk about contractor selection or something
like
that? I can probably talk about that.
Okay.
I think you can almost combine that with safety or something.
Yeah, so obviously, like in so many other industries, after the COVID years, a lot of park operators and attractions owners, they're looking to streamline costs. So what steps can these owners take to make sure they're finding qualified contractors and inspectors while keeping costs down? They're not taking the lowest bid, they're actually getting the job done in a way that's safe for their guests and streamlines costs.
Right. Well, I can speak more directly once again to the concrete repair industry, and there's a lot of people there are a lot of companies that will do concrete repair, but in reality, when you start getting into these commercial facilities like amusement or industrial facilities, I think the first step is to really do a thorough evaluation of the contractor. Not only their qualifications. If you're, concrete repair, cathodic protection, and concrete preservation is really a specialty. And so, just probably get some references and make sure that they have experience in this, or many companies that this is their specialty. This is what they do. And so some type of contractor pre-qualification is really important, so that you don't have issues come down the road that are unforeseen. I think on the safety point, at the same time during the contractor evaluation, you want to have contractors that come in to work on your facilities that follow OSHA safety protocol, that have good safety records and experience ratings. And so part of that is making sure that, just as an example, and when we're dealing with concrete repair and corrosion, one of the big things from a safety standpoint right now, it's really hot topic, is silica exposure. So anytime that you're chipping or cutting concrete, you're releasing silica into the atmosphere. So you really have to have people who understand silica exposure mitigation and that kind of thing, and that's not only for the contractor safety, but many times, as you know, these are active facilities. You might be working in a parking structure, but it's still in use in other areas.
Right.
And so I would say pre-qualification, understanding not only of the safety history of a contractor, but also the experience they have directly related to the work that you're going to have done.
Right, yeah, that's so important. Anything else you want to chat about or add to the conversation here?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about concrete and corrosion, support the industry. AMP is a great place for. It's a great collection of resources, and if you don't know where to start, you can start there, and they'll get you in touch with the industry people that you need to be in touch with to head you down the right path. And I think that at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to make structures last longer. We're trying to be good environmental stewards and do the work safely within a budget. So that's we're all trying to accomplish the same thing. So when we're talking about sustainability and concrete preservation, extending the life of structures, that's really important to our company as well. And we actually, to support that initiative, have developed a website called WeSafeStructures.info. And so it's not talking about any specific products or technology. It's really out there to promote good practices, good concrete repair and corrosion practices, and so it's a good resource. It also series of seminars that are being produced that are uploaded. There's a lot of good content there for if you have an interest in this area. But also on that website is we've developed an environmental impact calculator. So when you're producing concrete, you have production of reinforcing steel, you have transportation, you have cement production, and they're all energy intensive, and there's always a element of resource consumption. And even just think about how many gallons of potable water that would go into a yard of concrete. And so, this impact calculator will say, if we have a structure in place and just say it has 10,000 cubic yards of concrete, what's the positive impact of not replacing that structure to keep that in place?
Okay.
And you put the details in there, and it puts out the information like how many tons of carbon production has been avoided by maintaining the facilities. How much other types of pollution is avoided? How many gallons of potable water are conserved, et cetera? So that's an excellent resource for people who are interested in that topic.
Awesome, that is great.
That was Chris Ball of Vector Corrosion Technologies. And here to wrap up the series, it's Jana and Ryan Tinney.
Let us start out by just going to have you introduce yourself, just name, title, company, where you're from, a little elevator pitch if you've got something to start with.
Yeah, I can go. I'm Ryan Tinney. I am a corrosion professional working out of the Seattle area. I mostly specialize in rehabilitating marine structures, including aquariums, piers, docks, bridges, and anything made out of steel or concrete that goes into seawater.
All right. How long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry for 20 years now this March.
Okay. And does your company do just amusement park attraction or a wider range of things?
Oh, we dabble all over. I would say the majority of the work that we do is waterfront structures, piers and docks and bridges. But one thing that we do get into quite frequently is aquariums, both public and privately owned.
Okay.
Because aquariums are bringing seawater inside a building, and frequently as well are often built on piers over the water or near the water. They are always experiencing dramatic corrosion issues, and because these facilities don't necessarily have corrosion professionals on staff, they just have maintenance people. And these maintenance people have to know how to do mechanical engineering for all of the piping systems and life support systems, and they have to know about corrosion a little bit and facility structures as well. And it's this crazy job that they have to juggle. And because of that, it's unlikely that any of those maintenance staff are going to be corrosion experts. So sometimes mistakes get made, and that's when I come in.
Have you had a chance to check out much of the exhibit hall yet, or spend time at the booth?
I've checked out a little bit of the exhibit hall, not a whole lot. There's some. It seems like the really trendy thing this year was those dark rides.
Which ones?
The dark rides.
Oh, I didn't see those.
Like, they've got little tunnel rides.
Oh, fun.
They look cool. The lines are really long, so I haven't braved them. But they look really sleek from the outside. I can't see anything. But
that and VR, I'm surprised there's so much of the VR. They're probably a lot cheaper to make than our traditional.
It's got a little bit of upfront cost, but it's also a little bit more adaptable. Hopefully.
Did you have any conversations yesterday, or have any questions after the panel that surprised you, or kind of made you look at the industry a little bit differently?
So we had somebody talk to me afterward. That was a couple of people from a smaller amusement park in Brazil, and they're dealing with a lot of corrosion issues there, but because they're an amusement park in Brazil instead of in Orlando or something, their maintenance budgets are just not what we have, and so they're looking for just some advice on what can we do to kick this off. How can we get rid of this, because what we're doing here is not working. I think there's a lot of the amusement industry that's that way, that they may not have the budget for large inspections and whatever from corrosion professionals, because we're not extremely cheap, right? Once you factor in the life savings and the extension, then we are pretty cheap. But upfront cost, it's hard for some really small companies to be able to foot that. So it got me thinking about, well, how do we get this information to these people, because they may not be able to consult professionals very often, but we need to make sure that those people also have the information available about their corrosion issues. It sounds like that's something that we're really starting to work on at AMP.
So I imagine after a couple years of COVID, everybody's trying to streamline costs. What would be the first thing that you would tell somebody who's looking to find a qualified corrosion expert or painting contractor, but do need to keep costs down? Is there a first step or a one thing that they need to do?
Sure. I think there's. I think you kind of touched on two slightly different things. As much as we like to combine materials and cathodic protection side of things and the coating side of things because they work so well together, we're a little bit separated in that our expertises are typically apart. I have a level 1 coating inspection certification, but I'm not specifically a coating side contractor, and there's not a lot of us that do both. But on the materials, and cathodic protection side, really it's about making sure that in the design phase, there has to be reviewed by a qualified person to make sure that there is not going to be a corrosion issue on that ride, because the designers are not corrosion people. And they may have thought about it briefly if a client came back to them with negative feedback, but they're not inherently materials engineers on the corrosion side. On the coatings, which is ultimately most of the corrosion prevention that happens at amusement parks, regardless of what type of amusement park it is, those coating systems coatings are very picky, and surface preparation and using the right product and using qualified applicators is how you solve that. And you can solve that through making sure that you have a robust spec. If the company that you work for doesn't know how to write a coating spec, you need to hire someone to write it for you, because the coating spec is it's their contract, right? It's what's going to tell the coating contractor what to do. And if it isn't very thorough and robust, you're going to have a bad coating.
Right. We were talking a minute ago that it's not just roller coasters and Ferris wheels. There's ice rinks and aquariums and indoor swimming pools. There's all sorts of really interesting built environments in this industry. Do you have any examples or case studies that you want to talk about regarding some of the challenges you've seen at these kind of venues?
Sure. I guess the low-hanging fruit for me that I see repeated over and over again within aquariums is the use of 304 and 316 stainless steels in and around these saltwater environments. And they're really not the best material for those environments, especially because most of the time when you're using stainless steels in those environments, you're using it because you don't want to have visually any rust staining. Forget the failure of the product or whatever, there's an aesthetic problem with everything's covered in rust. And 304 and 316 stainless steels, they don't have the molybdenum content to be resistant to chlorides very well.
Okay.
And they can do sometimes okay if everything about the salt environment is right. They can do okay, but most of the time they're just not. They're going to fail, and stainless steel hardware gets used. Bolts and nuts and washers gets used in aquariums all the time, and they're constantly getting changed out and cut out.
Yeah.
Because if they just spent a couple extra bucks on hardware, they wouldn't have to change them out at all.
Right. Is that something that has to be specially made or designed for that environment? So it's just you really have to know up front what you're getting into.
If you're looking, because usually with bolts you have to have certain strength requirements. So using plastic is not a solution.
Yeah.
There's certain grades of titanium that you could use. There's duplex stainless steels that can be used, but both of those materials are less common in hardware, and you're talking about special ordering hardware.
Okay.
So instead of 6 cents a bolt, now you're talking $8 a bolt. And that can add up if you're building a huge structure.
Yeah.
But if you've got 20 bolts, who cares?
Yeah. And you're doing it once, or you're doing it, once every 10 years instead of 20 times every 10 years if you're replacing and maintaining over and over again. Yeah. Plus the cost of labor and everything else. Yes.
Great content there from Jana. Thanks to her for taking the time from IAAPA out in Orlando. Thanks as always to you all for tuning in. And if you want more resources before we sign off, there is an amusement parks and attractions page on the AMP website. Just visit amp.org and you can find all sorts of corrosion resources as it pertains to amusement parks and the attractions industry. With that, for Jana Schultz, I'm Ben Dubose. Thanks as always for listening, and please come back soon for another new AMP podcast.